And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan. On this Thursday, November 30th, hard to believe it's going to be December come tomorrow. And if you'd like additional weather information on top of this YouTube video, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence. It brings you to a map of the continental U.S. with Hawaii and Alaska to the lower left, as well as these tabs for the various territories. And if you point and click anywhere on these maps, it will pull up a local forecast for that location along with any relevant watches, warnings, or advisories. And looking at the lower 48 on this Thursday afternoon, of note, there's winter weather advisory. Southern Iowa, we have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings in through especially northwest New Mexico, areas to the just west of Santa Fe and especially west of Albuquerque through Gallup. We have winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories for northeastern Nevada, the Ruby Mountains, Jarbidge Mountains in the northeast corner of the state there. And then Idaho back into Washington, Oregon. The Cascades have winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. Here in Alaska, things are relatively quiet, given we're almost here at the 1st of December. A storm of a different type we're going to be watching out for. There is the potential. Space weather forecasters think based on a few different coronal mass ejections that occurred earlier this week, they could arrive some point tonight into Friday and trigger not just a Class 3 strong geomagnetic storm, but also widespread aurora that could push all the way south past the mid-latitudes in the lower 48. So we'll see if that happens. Got to have clear to partly cloudy skies, though, to see it. Weekend temperatures are going to be cooling back down in many areas a little closer to normal, especially in the mainland and the west side of the state. There will be a couple low pressure systems work up through the southeastern Gulf and impact the panhandle this weekend, Saturday into Sunday, with mainly some light to maybe moderate precipitation. But a stronger low will move up into the Gulf on Monday and Tuesday next week, and that will impact the panhandle and Gulf Coast with some higher winds, as well as moderate to heavy precipitation. So stay tuned for future forecasts, possible watches, warnings, advisories for that system. And then looking further ahead in the middle of next week, Wednesday into Thursday of next week, an Arctic cold front will be crossing the northern and central Bering Sea into the west coast, bringing in some Arctic air and snow, some of the coldest air so far this season, which is really going to help accelerate some of the ice development along areas of the west coast. But looking at a couple of the FAA webcams, we have a nice shot here of low sun angle at Northway, partly cloudy. The temperature early this afternoon around 2 o'clock was 0. They reached a low of 15 below in Northway at around just before 9:30 this morning. Now, along the outer coast of the Panhandle, Sitka reports partly cloudy skies, 45 degrees. If you can keep those partly cloudy skies, you might be able to see the aurora tonight. Same thing up there in Northway. Many parts of the state are still relatively cloudy and will probably miss out on this event. Quick check of hazardous weather conditions. We have a couple of advisories that will expire at 9 o'clock this evening. The first one, a wind advisory that includes Delta Junction, Fort Greely, Donnelly. This area here could still see some east winds gust as high as 40 to 60 miles an hour through about 9 o'clock this evening. And then there is a winter weather advisory along the summits of the Dalton Highway northwest of Fairbanks until 9 p.m. this Thursday evening. Another inch of snow could fall through mid-evening with some wind gusts as high as 45 miles an hour in some of those higher elevations. But getting back to what may be the most notable thing coming up here in the short term is that we have a series of Earth-directed CMEs that could trigger a strong Class 3 geomagnetic storm at some point tonight or Friday. It just depends on when it arrives. If you have clear or partly cloudy skies in your area this evening into early Friday morning or again Friday evening, it would be worth taking a look and checking some of the various websites that talk about space weather. One of them is the NOAA website, spaceweather.gov. So best chance of this happening will be at some point this Thursday night into Friday, but we will have a waning gibbous moon. The moon is just 3 days past full phase, so there's quite a bit of moonlight, but nevertheless, if you have a really decent display of the northern lights, you can still see them quite well, and sometimes that moonlight actually helps to illuminate the foreground as far as when you're taking pictures, it can really do a nice job on illuminating some of the landscape if you like to take photographs. And then this bright aurora displays may be visible as far south down into the middle latitudes, not just up here around Alaska or Canada, but also pushing southward as the strength of that particular energy could definitely make it one of the better displays we've seen here this fall. Well, taking a look at the satellite imagery, we have an area of low pressure in the Western Gulf. We have this kind of trough or frontal system that has a series of lows embedded along it, and that's going to be the main weather player through the weekend. Nothing too terribly exciting. There's a couple of weaker areas of high pressure here over northwest Canada and then out over eastern Russia into Siberia. We put the weather map in motion. We're going to have a few areas. There's one area of low pressure right now just southeast of Kodiak Island, another one north of Dutch Harbor between there and St. Paul, and another back out here towards Shimmy and the western Aleutians. And this will be the main zone of some active weather over the weekend. A couple of weaker lows are expected to come up into the Gulf later Saturday into Sunday. That could bring some light to moderate precipitation and breezy conditions, but not a major storm by any means. And there's this weak trough that just kind of sits up here as of this afternoon across the mainland with the high pressure areas on each side here, one in northwest Canada, the other in eastern Russia. Late tonight, early Friday morning, we have one low just situated kind of along the central Gulf, North Pacific interface with this weakening occluded front trying to lift a little further north. We have that other low back here approaching Bristol Bay, and then another one a little stronger out there out toward the western Aleutians. By the time we get into Friday afternoon, the low here over the lower Gulf, southeastern Gulf, still be there, could provide some precipitation, some rain and snow, mainly light to moderate there in parts of the Panhandle with breezy conditions. And then the low here nudges up toward Bristol Bay by Friday afternoon, and we have the other low out toward the western Aleutians filling a bit, coming up 10 millibars. And then by the time we get into Sunday afternoon, that one low weakens here along the southeastern Gulf with another low kind of just pushing up into the southwest near Kuskokwim Bay, Bethel, and then the other low sitting back here toward the central Aleutians. And note weak high pressure in northwest Canada. Here is that stronger low that's going to come up out of the North Pacific and lift right into the Gulf Monday and Tuesday, and that'll be the next significant weather system to impact the Gulf Coast and areas of the Panhandle early next week. What that is going to do is going to pull up here into the Gulf and get the more of a northerly flow on the backside of it, but there's going to be a stronger Arctic cold front come out of Siberia, eastern Russia, and as that crosses the central northern Bering, that'll bring windy conditions with areas of snow, blowing snow, and colder temperatures along the west coast that then is going to swing across the southwest and the Alaska Peninsula as we go into the middle of next week, Wednesday, Thursday. Much colder temperatures in this region. I'll show you the hints of that coming up with the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook here in just a moment. But temperatures should generally stay above freezing, middle, lower portions of the Panhandle and areas further toward the east. If you get any partly cloudy skies, 4 above there, Glen Allen, 25 Anchorage Bowl. Temperatures on Friday afternoon should remain below freezing from around Anchorage northward, generally speaking. A little warmer, maybe some mid-upper 30s along the coast. Also some lower 40s here, 43, 44, Sitka, down at Craig and Klawak. And then by the time Saturday morning, could be 2 below up there in the Copper River Basin at Glen Allen and Gulkana. As we look along areas of the outer southern and western coastlines here of the Panhandle, 36, 38 degrees, Ketchikan, Craig up through Sitka. We can see a low generally below freezing across the Kenai Peninsula, maybe just below freezing there at Kodiak, and temperatures Saturday afternoon still generally above freezing along the Gulf Coast with some lower 40s, mainly in the Panhandle. And then daytime highs rather chilly in the Copper River Basin, just 5 above at Gulkana. And looking at lows, Friday morning, another 15 below or so at Northway, 10, 15 below areas of the Yukon Flats. That's where the coldest temperatures, also your better chance of having at least mostly clear to partly cloudy skies to view the aurora. Further westward, we see temperatures in the upper teens to near 20 degrees along the Seward Peninsula. And highs Friday may stay below 0 in areas of the Yukon Flats and down toward Northway in the upper Tanana Valley. And as we go toward the west, some temperatures still reaching lower 20s along the Seward Peninsula coastline, including Shishmaref down through Nome. And then low temperature Saturday morning, again, sub-zero across much of the central eastern interior toward the Alcan border, and temperatures generally in the teens, Seward Peninsula and along the coastal areas of the west. High Saturday afternoon will remain below zero in the normal cold spots here in the Yukon Flats and around Northway, maybe barely above zero there at Fairbanks. And looking at the southwest interior, cooling down across this area. As I said, we're going to see cooler, more normal temperatures this weekend with colder air coming middle of next week across the west and southwest. So we have temperatures southwest interior, lower teens, above freezing out along the Aleutians. Still could see lower 40s or so, tip of the Alaska Peninsula as you get down there toward False Pass, Cold Bay, and up through the central Aleutians, Adak. And then as we look at lows Saturday morning, few areas could be down the single digits, especially up toward McGrath. Otherwise, lower mid-teens, 20-ish or so along the coast. Generally a bit above freezing along the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians. And again, temperatures Saturday afternoon, warmest readings will be in the low 40s as you run out the Alaska Peninsula in through the eastern and central Aleutians. Temperatures should stay below freezing, not much above the lower 20s here across the southwest interior, including Bethel, Anvik, and places like that. Now, here's the temperature forecast, December 6th through the 10th, so the middle of next week into next weekend, with that batch of Arctic air crossing the Bering, coming down here into the west side of the state, coming across the Alaska Peninsula. This is the area where temperatures will most likely average below to maybe a bit, not much below normal, but definitely colder than what we've experienced so far this late fall, early winter season. So be aware of that. Near normal temperatures anticipated, the Panhandle up along the eastern portion of the mainland and areas along the Arctic coast, North Slope, maybe slightly above normal. Precipitation, though, is expected to average near or a little below normal across the Alaska Peninsula, though I'm a little suspect of that just because when you have those cold northeast or northwest winds with the snow showers they generate, maybe it'll end up being closer to normal. But precipitation may average above normal here, southeast interior, Fairbanks, 40-mile gold country down through Wrangell, St. Elias, McCarthy, and then down here through much of the Panhandle. And as I mentioned, we'll be keeping an eye on that stronger low that moves into the Gulf early next week on Monday and Tuesday.